Thank you so much for being here today, Mark. I am going to do just a little intro, just so you know.
Sure.
Welcome to my conversation. And really, this is just all about youth sports and the value of youth sports. And I really appreciate, you and everything that you've been doing for our organization. It really means a lot to me to have somebody like you in our corner, and someone who is able to speak our mission just from the heart. And I really get that every time I'm in the club room and you talk about every kid sports to your customers, that I get that that's coming from your heart. And so one of the things I would just love to hear from you is, what is it about every kid sports that speaks to you?
Well, to me, there's no, let me take a step back. The greatest excitement I felt as a child and growing up was when I was on my way to go play Little League Baseball or any sort of a sport. I just love the participation. I love the competition and the excitement of being part of a team. And the notion that, and this is a long time ago when there was no real big time sort of travel teams and all this big money production and stuff. And the notion or the idea that kids are out there that would love to do that also, and they can't, not because they're too tall, skinny, this, that, whatever it is, but simply they don't have the means to afford it, is heartbreaking. And so the fact that every kid's sports is giving every child the opportunity to play a sport, and they cover, the first big chunk of that, if not all of it, is amazing. It's absolutely amazing, because to me, the notion of waking up every Saturday and knowing that I'm on my way to my Little League Baseball game is just, there's no greater joy. That's it. I'm so excited. And the fact that your organization is giving kids the opportunity to have that feeling every Saturday morning or every whatever morning is incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, that really sums it up. I mean, one of the reasons, I started this was I too just loved competing. I loved going to practice. I loved game day. It was just that feeling of that excitement and being able to challenge yourself and to work as part of a team. And, and I don't know, it sounds like you and I are on the same page. It just breaks my heart when I learned how many kids are being marginalized. And it's not because of anything other than they can't afford to cover the registration fees, and they're just being priced out of the game. And I think so many people in the country don't realize that. If you live in a sport town, like I live in a town where all the kids play, and there's just a ton of youth sports, but we are the exception, not the rule. And it's really changed across the country. And for those of us that are our age group, we grew up with youth sports just being prolific. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
And it isn't today. And there's youth sports deserts where there just is no youth sports programming. And a lot of that's come from the super competitive model that's going on in our country. And so you want to talk about pricing kids out, that's really pricing kids out. But even at the recreational level, some families can't afford that, or most families can't, that are low income. And so it's one of my great honors to be able to make a difference and to help those. And as you know, I have this big, huge goal, right? I'm trying to raise $10 million. Really, I'd like to raise 90 million, because 90 million would mean a million kids in the game. But I'll settle for 10 as a start. But it's a big goal, and it requires people like yourself, getting on board with us. And so, I really do thank you for that. And I would just love to talk a little bit about what you see going on, with youth sports, and what do you think are some of the things that need to change?
That's a great question. So, I'll try to condense this a little bit, but so the good news is, I think that there's more emphasis on better coaching and better sort of rules surrounding, let's say, parental involvement. And there's more, emphasis on really making it a great experience, I think. On the flip side, it also means more dollars. It also means greater expense. It means more travel teams and more specialized leagues. And it is absolutely, I can tell you, because my son's a high school senior, and he's, we did the Little League thing, and that wasn't too expensive in New York City. It wasn't really terribly unreasonable because it was partially funded by sponsors and so forth. But I can also say that the travel thing is very, very expensive, and for everybody. And I think that it takes away from the concept of just playing a game to play a game. One of the things I talk about all the time, and I've written some pieces about it, is how valuable it is just simply play a game of catch with another child. And you don't need to be in a fancy stadium and fancy uniforms and fancy equipment. Just get a crappy glove and a crappy ball and just start throwing it back and forth. And that the thwack of the ball into the mitt it's almost indescribable. And the crack of a bat, right? So that's why I think just giving, again, every child the opportunity to play it, regardless of age, whether they're 4, 5, 6 and they're just starting out on t-ball or whatever the sport is, all the way up through into high school and through high school. It's just you don't need to be in the sport to be the best at the sport, just to be participating and feeling that adrenaline rush of the competition. And even if you're winning a third of the time or something, it doesn't matter. The fact of just having a victory and just feeling that, it's so critical, not just for being part of, being a child and a kid, but just as you grow and you grow towards being getting a job and being in business and having that competitive spirit, it's invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I think back to all of the different things that I've, learned through youth sports, and like losing, figuring out how to lose with grace,
Yeah.
and realizing that you can't win every game and you're going to also, make mistakes. I grew up playing softball and baseball, and I still can remember, viscerally remember being in the championship all-star game. I was a third baseman and the ball went like right between my legs, and we lost because of an error that I made. And I just got the chills because I can still remember that feeling. And I remember being all hangdog, and, and it was and my coach was just like, hey, we can't win them all. Like, you had a great game up until that moment. And we had an amazing season. We went all the way to the championship game of the All-Star tournament. Like, you can't hang your head down, like hold your head up. And you did more than, there was like 1,000 girls that were part of this tournament, and we were in the last game, and so it was just like, yeah, but I can still remember that feeling,
It's nice.
of
It's tough though. Yeah.
yeah, but it taught me so much, and it's like, and if you always win, you don't know how to, learn from the losses. And I think
Yes.
there's so much learning in the losses, way more learning in the losses than there is in winning. I mean, winning is easy and feels great and all that kind of stuff, but it's when you lose and have to come back from that, it's way more that you learn.
Oh, perfect. That's so well said, Natalie. And it's interesting that it also almost reminds me of when they say that if you find $100 bill on the street, you're incredibly fired up and excited. But if you lose $100, you're even more devastated. Like the losses hurt worse than the gains of a win, and it's the same thing. I agree with you. It's the same thing in sport. And I think what ends up happening, as you said, is that we learn from our losses in order to become better victors.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that $100 is such a great example, right? Because when you find $100, there's nothing you can do to teach yourself to find that $100 again. But if you lose $100, there's all kinds of things you can do to make sure that never happens again. Like you put it in your wallet, you put your wallet deep in your pocket, or
Right.
just like, there's all these things you can learn. But just finding it, it's like there's really no lesson there other than you just got lucky. And so I love that analogy, because it's you can go deep on that one for sure.
Absolutely. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, and look, the one other thing I'll mention, I don't know if this was going to be one of your following questions, but it's one I want to make sure we bring up is it's also in terms of what you guys are doing. It's not just giving kids who can't afford it the opportunity to play, but it's also giving them the opportunity to play a sport in lieu of or in place of doing something that maybe they shouldn't be doing, and giving them the opportunity to play sports means that they don't necessarily have that same time that they can be doing something on the streets or in the whatever it is, or just being surrounded by other people that are of not great influence. And we've heard a ton of stories of current athletes and retired athletes who they say, look, I was this close to getting caught up in the drugs and the violence and this and that, but by meeting coach or playing for so and so team or having three of my buddies play also, really turned it all around. And I think that that's something that the more that we can do that, especially in the neighborhoods that it can be challenging, and go through some of those challenges and so forth. I think that's a great thing that you guys are doing. If we can get to the point where, as you said, impacting 1 million kids, I mean, it's just, let me take a half a step back. One of the things I like to say is that when you influence one person yourself, it multiplies out from there, because that person will tell one or two or three people who will then tell two or three people, and it just grows from there. And if you just influence one kid to play a sport, he or she will tell his or her friends about how amazing it is to be on the basketball team, on the whatever it is team. And hopefully that grows that whole thing, so.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. And, one of the things, there's tons of research about, playing sports lowers teen pregnancies, it lowers drug use, it lowers alcohol use. They do better in school. They're more likely to graduate. But the statistic that stands out the most to me that I love to quote is that $1 invested in youth sports produces 1,000% return to society. So when you spend that dollar on a kid to get them playing a sport and learning how to, thrive in life, it's 1,000% return, because then that child's not going to be incarcerated. That child's not going to, do drugs and need treatment and all the other things that come from that one wrong turn in life. And so it makes a really compelling argument of like, hey, get $1, just put $1 into this. It's 1,000% return to society. Pretty easy math.
And that's so well said. And I don't even think you ever need to defend that stat. It's pretty obvious that, they've shown all kinds of statistics, and what you talk about is true, that, with that kid participating in this, instead of, for example, becoming pregnant, teen pregnancy, if she's playing softball or whatever she's playing, basketball, et cetera, the trickle down is enormous, because it impacts so many people. That one teenage pregnancy impacts her entire family, possibly the father's entire family, the future of, that child, all that stuff. So yeah, I could, in fact, I would argue that it's even more than 1,000%, it's more than 10x.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's great. Well stated.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah.
This has been a really fun conversation, and I know we share a passion for this, and
We do.
I really do appreciate everything that you've been doing for us. And I know that we'll have a long future working together and helping each other out.
Most certainly. And, I think that, and whoever's listening to this or watching, et cetera, anybody that you can think of who might be able to further this message, is just so essential to get the word out. And, every little contribution helps enormously. So, nothing is too small. And even if it's donating your time versus money, even if it's contributing at the, at the Little League level, at the wherever the level is, it's just, what you're doing is fantastic. And it's hopefully a springboard towards more focus being on getting more kids involved with sports, and maybe, I don't want to say less with the gaming, because the gaming kind of keeps all the kids indoors, which maybe is okay now for COVID and so forth. But I feel that kids need to be out and running and doing stuff. And so what you're doing is fantastic. So I'm thrilled to be involved long-term with you guys, and just keep up the amazing work you're doing.
All right. Great. Well, thank you so much, Mark.
My pleasure.